Back to COVID. It was springtime on the island of New Florida, and the trains on the tracks were being really useful with passengers, freight, and gender service. Amtrak is the largest passenger railroad in the United States. It goes to cities in Canada and others in the United States, and that's what makes trains really useful. MBTA is a state-supported train in Massachusetts, and it goes to Providence, Rhode Island, and Stoughton, Massachusetts, and passengers inside the coaches can sometimes watch the MBTA train go by. And that's why they're really useful indeed. Amtrak sometimes pulls work trains with things they need to build new railroads. Not only does Amtrak do a good job with passenger trains, but they also do strong service with work supplies. And that is why they're really useful indeed for whatever things they deliver around the United States and Canada. And that's what makes trains really useful indeed. One day, Mr. Cakester was in the shunting yard. He was admiring some new engines. Katie, Olna, Elise, Heidi, and Tolda were in the yard. Lisa. "Welcome to my yard," Mr. Cakester said. "Karen and Christina are selling you today. And you six are $43. "That's a good price for a train, sir," Katie said. "It is," he said. "I'm Katie, and I'm a woman engine, and my other trailing units are super friendly indeed." "So you cost $43, Mr. Cakester said. "That's really cheap for a train." "Nonsense!" roared Karen. "Trains aren't that cheap. That's like the price of a toy engine, not a vehicle. Usually they're $40,000 to $100,000. Christina steamed over. "Karen's right," Christina said. $43 is very cheap for toys, and $200,000 is very cheap for a train because they're made very well. "Exactly," Mr. Cakester said. "Engines like you are $43, but the other trains are $200,000 to $50,000. "You've got that right, sir," Katie said. "I'm a cheap engine, of course." "I'm pretty cheap too," Olna said, "because I'm Katie's trailing unit." And they steamed out of the yard. "Women trains coming through," the 6 engines said at the same time. "Off to collect the big mix-up train." Before long, the 6 engines were coupled up to the train, and they steamed into the countryside. "Here we go," Katie said. "This is the biggest train we've ever pulled." Over in the cafe car, the brake van guard was buying a hot dog and hamburger for lunch, and the passengers in the transition sleeper car were enjoying the view. It was lovely. When the sun went down in the evening, Katie was pulling the lead as she was being really useful, just like her trailing units. That When night came, Katie shone on her lamp as she steamed over the bridge. "Here I go," Katie said. "Women engines coming through." And they were feeling pleased with themselves as the trailing units went to sleep. Over in the brake van, it was nice and peaceful, and the guard was asleep in his fold-down bed in the cupola as the train went along. When morning broke, the 6 engines steamed into the mountain range. Katie, Olna, Elisa, Heidi, and Tolda made their way through the mountains. And then the passenger coach passengers saw the whole train from way ahead. And Katie steamed down the line. "This is our mix-up train," said Tolda. "The brake van is far away from us," said Olna, "'cause we're gonna control it later on." And the freight cars clattered along. Over on the bridge, some men were fishing, and the whole train steamed over the bridge. The train was very super big with 568 cars. "I'm always good at leading the way," Katie said, "'cause we're on a sextuple header train." And she laughed down the line, and the trailing units were just in time to hear, "Hent-hent-hent-hent-hent cars!" Katie said as she steamed through the countryside. "Woman train is coming through!" It was a long train, of course. And in the Viewliner sleeper car, the passengers were in their roomettes and bedrooms, as the transition car was behind the sleeper car as they went along. After Katie shouted, "Hent-hent-hent-hent-hent cars." "I don't know what you mean by hent-hent-hent-hent-hent cars," Tolda said. "It sounds confusing to me." "It's something that people used to say long ago," said Heidi. And in the coach class seat, one of the passengers saw the whole train way ahead. And it was massive. And the empty freight cars were empty, and then the train went up the hill. And the train was so big, no one could count the cars. "I know what hent-hent-hent-hent-hent cars are," Katie said. "Hent-hent-hent-hent-hent! I'm a woman train!" "And you silly lot!" Meanwhile, Swansea and Drexel were pulling a long train of hazardous materials. It was super extra toxic. "Did I just hear a train say hent-hent-hent cars?" asked Drexel. "I don't know what you mean by that," said Swansea crossly. Then there was trouble. Katie, Lynn, Ulsa, Elisa, Heidi, and Tolda were fast approaching. "There might be a head-on collision," Drexel said, "because our train is very poisonous." Drexel was horrified. "Oh my goodness!" she cried. "There's a woman train ahead of us! We're a military train, not a woman engine! Then Drexel's driver saw Katie right ahead of him. We've got to hit the brakes! Katie said. The driver slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. Fire raged into the air as things were loud. And then everything came to a stop. When Ida saw the accident, she was horrified. Luckily, no one was hurt, but Drexel's driver and fireman had made it safely out of the cab unhurt before the wreck. But Katie had toppled over on her side. This is a devastating derailment, she said. I hope these engines are repaired soon, Ida said, because nuclear weapons are dangerous to humans. That night, a raging thunderstorm rolled in. Rain fell, and thunder and lightning crashed and flashed. And the engines were safe in their sheds. Locomotives on Sodor can be really useful just like you guys can, Percy said. I'm glad that is useful like us, said Katie. I'm sorry we had an accident. It was a head-on collision. Thanks for owning up to it, said Dwee. You are a really useful, kind friend. Early the next morning, the storm had passed, and the trains were back on schedule by doing really useful jobs on the tracks they needed to be on. And even though that accident was pretty recent, I used to say Hent-hent-hent cars when I was a young boy. And speaking of which, I wonder what it would be like if Amtrak had a freight train in the next episode with passenger cars in front. And Amtrak does a good job every day.